it's an understatement to say Scott Kress has a passion for adventure. Scott grew up in Wasaga Beach. He is an avid climber, has climbed to the summit of some of the world's most spectacular peaks, including Mount Everest. He's also the 18th Canadian to climb the 7 summits, the highest point on all 7 continents. So how do you top that? Well, how about a 44-day ski expedition to the South Pole, a journey unthinkable to most? Scott has just returned from his adventure last week, and he joins me on the phone now. Good morning.
Good morning.
How was it?
It was fabulous. It was extremely difficult and tough, but it was a great thing to have done, to accomplish.
So take me on that expedition with you. What was extremely difficult about it? How grueling was it?
Well, the big part, I've been telling people that it's the hardest thing I've ever done, harder than Mount Everest. And Everest is very difficult, but you've got some very difficult days on Everest, but then you also have some rest days. Whereas when you're skiing to the South Pole, you are on for 44 days with no rest. So all day long, 8-9 hours, you are skiing, pulling a 110-kilo sled over horrendous ice and snow. And you do it every single day for 44 days, and your body just breaks down physically, you break down mentally, you break down emotionally. It's just a very, very tough endeavor. What
were the conditions like?
Well, it wasn't too bad in some ways. We had several storms, but for the most part, the weather was not bad. It's average temperature about minus 30. And we had a good stiff wind pretty much every day. There's always a wind in Antarctica. It's a gravity-fed wind in Antarctica. And so the wind chill was probably around the more minus 40, minus 50 range. And then we just had really rough surface that you have to pull your sled through, kind of like if you were pulling, you pile your kids onto your little toboggan and you pull them down the street through a series of speed bumps, and you do that all day long. And some of those speed bumps are 6 feet tall, and that's kind of what it's like dragging all your supplies through Antarctica.
Yeah, so you had supplies for how many days?
We took supplies with us for 50 days. We were hoping it wouldn't take us 50 days, but you want to make sure you've got enough stuff. We needed to average around 20 kilometers a day in order to hit our target time, which we did most days. Some days were a little bit tougher. We didn't quite hit them, but we started out with 50 days worth of supplies that would last us to the end of the expedition.
Can you give me examples of the things you had? Because this is everything. You had to take everything you might need.
Yeah, there's a couple of different styles of expeditions. You can do an expedition where you get resupplied, where airplanes will actually drop supplies, food, and fuel for you, so the load that you need to carry is very light. Our expedition, what was it called, unsupported, unassisted, so everything that we needed for the entire time we started with. So we had 14 gallons worth of fuel for our stoves. This is white gas for our stoves. We had about 1 kilo of food per person per day, so I was carrying about 50 kilos worth of food. And then you've got your tents, your clothing, your sleeping bags, and all the other things that you need for survival in Antarctica.
And what did you see around you? I mean, the sun is so brilliant. I mean, does everything look the same?
Well, it's 24 hours of daylight in Antarctica at this time of year, and it is brilliant white. The scenery is pretty much the same every day. We did cross through a couple of mountain chains, and so you get some different